Thank you for joining me for another episode of Hobby Time in the Murder Basement, where today I get to sit down with an upcoming YouTube star, Lyla Mev, the Mini Witch. She has a fantastic channel, and it was really great to sit down and talk with her, especially at this point in her career. Like, subscribe, all that jazz. Catch you later.
Stuff, but when I look at your channel, I'm like really excited to see how your channel is growing because
Me too.
right. Well, so when I first started in the Brain Trust, I don't think you had your hours yet, but you were at like 1,200 subscribers.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
correct.
yeah, so you in 6 months time have added 3,000 subscribers and got all your hours and now are on the track to making a full-time content creation. And that was one of the most exciting things for me to see that right off the bat, because like I was like, oh shit, Lyla just did this. This is the first person that hit this milestone, and it was super inspiring to like, oh well, let's do this. Like it's possible, because at the time I was looking at mine and I was like doing the math. I was like, it is not possible.
It's funny when I'm part of several small small YouTubers on Reddit and things like that, and
Oh,
people
okay.
talk about like how did you make it, Lyla? And it's like, okay, first of all, I'm gonna be honest, and it's because I'm a pretty girl, and that's like the number one factor. I'm like not gonna lie, that's it. I'm a
No,
pretty girl.
no,
I
no,
mean, I'm
no.
good. I'm good at what I do, but I
You're
am
very
also
good.
a pretty girl.
Well, I, as a guy who wants to smash the patriarchy and not know that that is a thing that goes on, it definitely helps your odds. But I don't think you would be near where you're at if you sucked, like at
Oh
all.
no, definitely not. But like that is, I think that there are a lot of YouTubers or a lot of mini painters who are good at what they do and then haven't gotten as far as I've gotten as quickly. Not that I'm like climbing mountains or anything, but I've done decently well in a year. And yeah, the secret is I'm a pretty girl.
You're a pretty girl. But I mean, you're very personal. You keep your videos very light. You like even just the tone of the videos. It's one of those things that you walk into them, and I've noticed that like I love Casey's videos, eBay Miniature Rescues. His
Hmm.
his videos, because especially now that he's got his black background, like everything's like super high contrast and like half of his face is in shadow, and like the tone of his videos is way darker now, even though they look more professional.
Uh-huh.
And like yours, you're sitting in the chair, you got the fern behind you, you got cats jumping around you. There's something about to be said about like, if you're going to be painting grimdark stuff, you better bring a little levity with it. And I think you
Hmm.
do that really well.
Well, the cats are in the videos because I'm not funny, but the cats are funny. So yeah, so I have to keep the cats in the videos because they're what brings the lighter moments and humor. And I can't tell you the number of comments I've gotten that says things like clicked for the miniature, stayed for the cats.
Made for the cats. Well, and it's very endearing, and like, as because I've been watching your videos, like you're one of the few people in the YouTube Brain Trust that does like close to weekly release. Like
Hmm.
you make sure that you are on it, which I think is a huge reason why people are finding you. As soon as you start putting breaks and missing things, it seems like you aren't recommended near the same amount. And so like it's been fun watching those little like skits with the cats actually get like inserted better into there. And I'm like, man, once she gets like a little bit of a budget and like can have like multi-camera stuff going on, this is going to be really funny.
Yeah, when I said that I was going to do that cat video, some of my friends were like, "Really? Are you sure? Like that sounds like it's gonna kill your channel." And I'm like, "No, no, 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 no. Just wait. Just wait. Everyone loves my cats.
So how did the cat video perform?
um, a little. Well, so suddenly I've gotten a lot of I've suddenly increased in popularity, I guess. Like it used to be that I would be happy if I got 30 subscribers per video, and now
Sure.
I'm getting that like every day. So that's a
Nice.
very big jump over the past like 2 weeks. It has suddenly increased.
Nice.
So the cat video is at the lower end of my current average.
Okay. But like that was, I think, so the last video that you released with the ESNMM, which I'm just gonna say mirror finish armor plating. Like there's gotta be something like, because you're right, that was a hard one to say. Like watching that video, I was like, there's a lot of really great information in here. This is actually like, Miniac tried to do that when he was doing the Gold Smoke night, but
Hmm.
like got lost in the fact that he had to do a short 10-12 minute video on NMM, and it's just too much information. It is too much information in a short time, and so you did a really good job of like expanding that, and you took, I think, the proper amount of time to where it's actually uh accessible to get into. Oh my god, my phone is freaking out right now for some reason. Um, but like your cat video, I loved the cat video. I thought that was hilarious, and like it made the cats actually like something. I was like, oh no, I get this. I get this. This is very good.
Well, good.
Um,
I'm glad.
yeah. So, Lyla, thank you so much for coming into the murder basement. I'm really happy to have you here today. As I said before, it has been really inspiring watching your climb, because it has been something that, like, if you are just starting off, and it was the same when I started off on Twitch, like there's a vacuum and a void that sits out there waiting to consume your content and never let you know that it's good and or bad. Um, it is great to see people like actually get success, and it was super inspiring to start, especially when just getting into it. I was like, oh, thank God. If it's only Brent and like Squidmar and if there's no possibility to like climb, I don't even know what this group is doing here.
Uh-huh. Well, good. I mean, that's really what I want to do, is whether that's inspiring people with miniature painting or inspiring people to YouTube. I can do either.
Well, I think that the job of content creator, depending on what your like hobby or focus is, has to be about building a community. Otherwise, like it's just like there's no point in doing it, and it seems like something that you do really well. One of the earlier conversations that you and I had is you were talking about your Patreon and the fact that like you do lessons and stuff through there now, and that's like, to me, I was like, using Patreon for like actual like community building, like it, I don't know why, because I spend a lot of time on people's Patreons. It was like the first time that happened. I was like, that's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah,
So
sorry, you
continue.
go.
Sorry.
So I don't have a Facebook page. People have asked me to create a Facebook page, but I've wanted to devote all of that time and energy to really building a community and letting people get to know me, and save that as something for Patreon, just because if people want to support me monetarily, if people want to support me in this way, I want to make sure they're getting extra. And so
Sure.
I try to keep all of the community stuff. Not that I don't build a community outside. People send me miniatures on Instagram to get feedback, and I always try to answer all of my questions in my YouTube video. But for the people who really want to get to know me and build a community with me, then I like to keep that for my Patreon.
Yeah, I think that actually makes a lot of sense. And Facebook is such a, it's not a place where everybody goes for the stuff like this. Like, I have a Facebook page because I feel old and I still use Facebook, and I don't know why, because hardly anybody interacts with my business Facebook page, the Hobby Time in the Murder Basement Facebook page. Nobody does. It's just like a repository where I just like put duplicate information and like
Mhm.
that doesn't, like, it doesn't feel like any amount of time is worth it there. So like I think that's pretty smart. So you and I have talked about your history getting into like art and such, and I think that is you come at the miniature hobby from not just a fan of fantasy and science fiction. You come from a traditional art background, correct?
Correct. So I have my master's in photography. I've ran a freelance studio. I do videography. I've, you know, have been published and in galleries and a whole bunch of like fancy art stuff. But
Hell yeah.
so I was into fantasy, but not like you're right. I didn't pick up mini painting because of fantasy.
Right.
My husband wanted to start a D&D game, and I thought that was lame and didn't want to.
Have you seen your photo on YouTube? You think it's lame? What?
but but eventually he convinced me, and I'm like, fine, I will humor you and I will do D&D. And one session in, it was just over. It was over. And so I actually had all of these supplies. I was going to sculpt and paint ball joint dolls. This was this new project that I was going to do for my
Sure.
master's thesis, and I was terrible at it. I sucked. I was really bad. But so I had all of these supplies, tiny paint brushes and all this paint, and I decided, well, if I'm really into this D&D thing, I might as well try painting miniatures, because at the time we were using like a Lego piece for me and a penny for someone else, and I just thought that this is really stupid. Since I have all the supplies sitting in a drawer, I might as well at least paint miniatures for us, and then
Right.
completely fell in love with it.
So your ball joint miniatures, those are like those little like posable armatures and stuff. Were you
Correct.
using those to like set up like photography scenes and like do like how are you going to use them for the masters? Because like an MFA thesis is, I don't envy anybody who has to go through that, because like they they ask you to defend your art in a way that sometimes it's indefensible. You're like, I'm this is a compulsion to do this, and it seems like a really good idea to me. What do you think it is? And that's a fucked up place to put people who are creative, because I mean they should be able to describe themselves, but like, when you're doing like a huge paper and it, like that's a messed up place to be.
So when I did my undergrad near a rather big city, and I had access to models and costume designers and makeup artists, and I was creating these huge tableaus, like renting out spaces and costumes and hiring models and doing like these really big scenes. Well, when I came to grad school, no offense to grad school, I didn't want to go. This is not the one I wanted to go to. They just paid me the most.
Oh, sure.
So came to this grad school, and I did not have any of that support. There
Oh,
was,
that sucks.
they
Where
were,
was your
it's a,
grad school at?
the middle of nowhere, Illinois.
Ah, yes. Yes, I've been there.
So there were no models. The theater department was not friendly whatsoever. At my undergrad, I had a key to the theater department so that I could go
Nice.
get costumes whenever I wanted. I second day of school walked into the theater department at grad school, and they just said, "You got wow, you're like really ballsy to come here on the second day and ask if you can borrow shit." And I was like, "Oh, that's how this is gonna be. I see." And was never, they really did not want me there. And then it's nothing
Interesting.
against them. They had lent out so many costumes and then never gotten them back, that they just had a hard rule that they didn't lend out costumes, which is fair. But I just thought how they treated me, of like the audacity of you coming here on your second day. So, but anyway, so the plan was, since first I learned to sew, and then I learned to do makeup, and then I tried to do all of this on my own. and I was not very good at it. So I thought, well, I will try crafting these dolls and sewing all the costumes and everything for them and try to recreate these giant tableaus that I was doing just on a smaller scale with dolls. That was the theory.
Ah, okay. Well, I mean, I think I mean, you got to do the small one before you do the big one. So yeah, no, that totally makes sense. Like small town schools. So my business partner got his MFA from SIUE Edwardsville, and like that's like sculpture department, that two-dimensional art department, they were the most supportive group of people I've ever seen. Like and it didn't matter, like the photography students hung out with the sculpture student, like they all like helped each other, and the teachers were all super supportive, and like they just got tons of donations of stuff all the time, because like it was such a inspiring place to be, that like
Hmm.
everybody wanted to help these kids out. And kids is like anyone from like early 20s to, my business partner was I mean, I guess he was in his mid 30s at that point when he he was in it, and there's people older than him for sure. And like it seems like a smaller community would be like a lot more like, oh, this person wants to do things, hell yeah, let's do things, because it is boring here without
Yeah,
it.
that's what I was expecting, was that someone who, the fact that I wanted to come in and utilize everything that the school had to offer to me just seemed so obvious. And then just to have that door like slam, just like, oh, well, this is not a good start to my grad school career.
Man,
But
I
I
got 3
mean,
more years of this.
yes. But even though it wasn't the school that I wanted to go to, I'm very happy with how I turned out. I'm a documentary photographer now, which I would never in a million years have seen coming.
Nice.
Um, so I did my master's thesis on what does someone with an invisible illness look like. Um, so I mean, I never would have started that project when I was doing like fashion photography and all of that stuff. So I'm very
Sure.
pleased with how everything turned out, even though it's not what I wanted at the beginning.
So what does that look like? So like, did you make up an illness, or did you find people who were actually sick and you're like, okay, we're going to follow the person's life and see how this actual illness goes? Because I could see it going either way in art school.
Okay, so if my grandparents somehow ever watch this, I love you. You're wonderful and supportive. Yes. Anyway,
Yes.
but I have anxiety, and my grandparents told me that I was too pretty to have anxiety and that I just needed to pray harder. And it
Nice.
was, if
Nice
I
one,
am
guys.
too pretty to have anxiety, then what does someone with an invisible illness look like?
Right. Right.
And so I put out this call to people with invisible illnesses. What I photographed people with like brain cancer, depression, like ankylosing spondylitis, diabetes, like all across the spectrum. And
Nice.
then I wanted to photograph them in a location, and like their favorite location, their favorite outfit, like whatever, doing their favorite thing, whatever would sum up their life. And then I went to their house and just talked to them. And without really telling them that I was taking the photograph, I was taking the photos so that I could get a more natural expression. I didn't,
Sure.
generally, when you're taking someone's portrait, they smile even nervously because they don't really know what they're supposed to be doing. So
Right.
by
Right.
just talking to them and taking the pictures without them necessarily knowing I was taking the pictures, I was able to get a lot more of a natural expression.
That's awesome. And did you walk away from that? I mean, like you said, you didn't know that you were going to be a documentary and photographer. Did those experiences like translate to how you express your art now? Like now that you've learned these things, now that you're seeing people in this light, seeing the world in this light, because like that is a very transformative experience. Is that something that you still use today?
So you want to know, did I learn something from doing this project?
I mean, like, yeah, like what was the lasting effects of that, besides you found yourself a new a new degree? Like what, where did that take you?
I think that it was very interesting to me because even as someone with an invisible illness, I still found myself unconsciously being biased towards people. Like there was one gentleman, the man who had ankylosing spondylitis, which is basically like your cartilage starts to harden, and then eventually you can't bend down, you can't move your fingers, so like it's a joint illness,
Sure.
and he was ripped. He looked like he could like not like Arnold Schwarzenegger ripped, but like lean, but I could see every muscle because he got photographed shirtless, and I just could not believe it. I was looking at him like this man can't bend down to tie his shoes. He had to learn to tie his shoes with his toes because he can't bend down, and this is what
Wow.
he looks like. And so it was very inspiring to me that even doing this project, I was still unknowingly holding these biases.
Just like there's no way that this guy could be this big and like be in this place. Yeah, I holding biases against what people can and cannot do, I think will always be something that we always have to keep ourselves in check with. Like there's no easy way to understand how someone's life has been affected by, whatever illness or anything they're going through. Right now on Twitch, there's a lot of talk about like mental health, because like it's just we're all like 6 months into COVID-19, and like it is affecting all of us in very weird ways. Some people are overcompensating, some people are little puddles on the floor. We don't really know what to do, and so like as a community we're like trying to like make sure that like we support everybody and not make assumptions, because like people are like hot tempered quick, and it's just like sometimes you gotta like realize that we're all like still hurting all at the same time.
Exactly.
Yeah. So husband gets you into D&D, and you've taken all of your art skills now and had another complete and total like left turn, like, oh, we got to go over this way. What was like your first like models that you started painting? Like where did you go in that direction?
So my local game store had Reaper bones, like the white ones that are absolutely terribly sculpted and with like bent swords and things. So those
Oh
were the
yeah.
first ones I did. And looking back, I can't believe this, but my first miniature had OSL. I didn't know what OSL was, but I knew that I wanted the staff to be glowing and I was going to paint the fire reflections in this man's armor. And I'm just
Right.
like, oh my God, like, but that's like me. That's like, that sums me up very well. Of like, of course, my first miniature had OSL on it because why wouldn't it have OSL on it?
Well, I mean, so the interesting thing, people who come from not art background to people who do, like, I'm not a painter. I don't have an art background. I just hang out with artists. So when I started painting, wet blending and like OSL, even though I sucked at it, these were all things that I was like, have to be on here because I've been looking at art and I've been looking at these things and it's part of them. And just because it's a little sculpture doesn't mean that you don't paint that stuff on there. You still have to do it. And the people who don't have that art history, they're like base coat, wash, highlight, done. They don't
Yeah.
think about it like just getting paint on the brush is really difficult for them.
Like, I didn't realize there was a YouTube community. Like, I knew there was an Instagram community, and I was ready for that. But I did not know there was a YouTube community, so I didn't watch any YouTube videos or look at any tutorials. I literally just sat down with the paints that I had and just started painting. And like I said, it was, well, this miniature, he had like a big mall or something like that, and there were flames coming sculpted into this miniature. And I'm like, well, clearly I need to paint the fire like fire, and fire is reflective, and like didn't think about it twice. Just like, yeah, clearly this is how it goes.
That's amazing. I love it. So how long ago was that?
Am I on 3 years or am I at 2.5 years? 2.5 to 3, somewhere in there.
Nice. We've been painting the same amount of time. That's I'm calling us like the fourth wave of mini painters. I'm trying to figure out like what the generations are, because it seems like the people who started around us, and like Min Max is one who, by the way, she's a big fan of you, and like just so you know, um, but we all started with, like, her and I started within weeks of each other, and so it's really cool to see, like, in the short amount of time what we've been doing versus like people who've been doing it for 30 years. And I think
Hmm.
that this generation of mini painters are going to be really cool to see once we're like, 10, 15 years down the road, and we just kind of understand, the medium and how far we can push it. I am super excited that you are part of that, because I think that in that short amount of time you have done some really amazing things, like things that I haven't even like had the guts to try yet.
Well, thank you. I have this thing where if I'm not good at it, I don't do it. So,
I mean, it's a great
so
rule.
yeah, so I ended up being pretty dang good at miniatures and just kept going with it.
So D&D and miniatures, and costumes and all this stuff before, were you doing other things before YouTube in like the fantasy zone? Because like you don't get a name like the Mini Witch and get like poses like your YouTube thing without having a little bit more, like, it almost felt like somebody plucked you from a Ren fair and it's like, and now you're gonna do this.
I mean, I wanted to be an author for a really long time. So which is why I took to D&D so well. I was writing like gothic romances and things like that. So like with
Nice.
ghosts and vampires, and so like I was not into like Lord of the Rings, but I was into like other genres of fantasy, which is why when my husband wanted me to do D&D, I'm like, no, I'm not. No offense, but Lord of the Rings is like a cool movie franchise and I'll watch it with you. But like that's not my thing. But then I learned that D&D can be whatever you want. And so I picked up on it very quickly because I had all of this other love of like grim and dark things.
Right. So did he make you be the DM at that point? He's like, and you're going to do this.
No, but I did guess DM. It was supposed to be one adventure, and the table fell so in love with my story that they're like, No, what do you mean that's the end of it? That's not the end of this." And so it ended up being a mini campaign within his campaign so that I could finish the story.
That's pretty awesome though. I mean, and especially allowing him to be able to play a game. Like, it sucks always being the DM, but you kind of always have to have a DM, you know?
Yes, my husband is the forever DM.
Well, and your husband does fantasy art as well, correct?
No, he does not. He posts on Instagram fantasy. He makes like characters that you can pluck and put into your fantasy world. I do all
Right.
the art. Those are all my drawings, but he
They're
comes
all
up with
your
the yes.
interesting. Okay,
Yes.
so I was like totally didn't understand what was going on with that. I was like, yeah, I'll give this a follow.
Yeah, that's my art.
Oh,
Oh yeah,
okay.
I draw too. Um,
And I hate you. So now that fantasy has taken over like your life, and it is like starting to become like your super creative outlet, how long did it take you to decide that content creation was going to be a part of this?
part of getting my MFA, I was a TA, so I was teaching my own classes while I was getting my master's. And the plan always was that we would move to this podunk town, I would get my master's, and then we would leave. But my husband uprooted his life to come be with me while I got my master's. And in the meantime, he ended up getting this career that he absolutely fell in love with. And I'm like, well, I can't make you move. Once you finally have your thing all figured out. So we decided that we would stay here for a couple years so that he could get work on his career. And then we just never left.
Sure, sure. I mean, like that's a really common story in America. You know, like you get deposited in very bizarre places, and you have to make the scene that wasn't there. You know.
Yeah, but there are almost no teaching positions here. So I had this
Uh,
degree and this love of teaching and no place to hire me unless I was willing to drive 2 hours there and back twice or three times a week to be able to teach. And I just decided that although I did really want to teach, that I didn't want to do it that badly. And so I had this need to teach and obviously wasn't being hired for photography. So I thought, I bet I can teach people this mini painting stuff. I mean, I like to think I'm a pretty good teacher. People seem to like me and think that I am articulate and able to explain things well enough. So maybe I can start teaching mini painting.
so mini painting happened while you were going through grad school.
Yes.
That's amazing because I don't know anybody who did anything else other than grad school during grad school. That's incredible.
So I'm going to let you in on a secret. Getting your MFA is not that hard.
Okay.
At
All
least it
right.
wasn't for me. I mean, I could be voted out every semester.
Uh-huh.
So like that was a thing that I had to be worried about. That at any semester they could decide my work wasn't good enough and kick me out.
Interesting. Okay.
But I mean, my work was always good enough, so I didn't worry about it.
That's pretty awesome because yeah, my business partner by the end of his MFA, he we made this huge sculpture out of bottle caps. I gained like 30 pounds drinking this single beer just to like try to like get the whole background all this one color, and so he had to like smash them back to bottle cap shape, and he like gave to himself like tennis elbow and tendonitis from like repetitive stress use. And so like literally by the end of it, he could barely like shake someone's hand. Like he was completely devastated, and like had enlisted all of his friends to help him fill an entire gallery full of art. And like I've never seen someone look so young and vibrant to like age like 10 years, and it was in seemingly like a 2-month period of time. So that's it's pretty nice that you didn't have that same experience, because it was pretty hard to watch him go through it.
I mean, also I do digital photography, so I push a button. Like
Yeah,
I meet up with people at their house and I push a button. So, I mean, I probably would have had a very different experience if I had to do something as tactile as that, but I didn't. So,
but there's other things that go along with just pushing a button. Just like that's pretty reductive of like setting up the composition, then doing all the like the after stuff. Like it is in depth. It's not just pushing a button.
yeah, I guess that's fair. So, first of all, I'm a school person. Like I love school. So, I am a straight A student, love to do school, very much comes naturally to me. Also, I have a habit of like belittling everything I do.
Don't like hold like don't like that's the old thing that will hold you in place. Like look at your shit and like celebrate it. Like you did this. That's really tough. Not everybody gets a chance to do that, and whether or not the school challenged you to the level that it needs to be, it's still a huge um achievement to go through it. So like yeah, don't be mean to yourself on shit like that. You earned it, and you earned the right to say I got a motherfucking MFA. Like
Well, thank
even
you.
if
I
you're not
appreciate
doing
it.
it. Right. So now you're stuck in the small town. Stuck is the wrong term. You are stuck in the small town. We're gonna go with stuck. That's the way it goes.
Pleasantly trapped. How
Pleasantly
can we phrase this?
you've got a great sense of Stockholm syndrome going on there, and you've taken to try teaching people miniature painting. Why the tutorial aspect of it? Like that's the one thing that like watching tutorials online there are so many people doing them that, to me, I tried one of them. I was like, this is a lot of work to compete with everybody else. Like, it's a pretty gutsy move to be like, and I'm gonna do this thing too.
So, I did not realize how many small YouTubers there were. Like, I did not know how big of a community this was. I was
Yeah.
like, I got like Miniac and Midwinter Minis and Black Magic Craft, and that's it. Like, there is a niche for me.
The big three. Here it
Yeah,
is.
I'm like, no, there's totally space for me.
Yeah.
I can do this.
I
So
didn't
part
even
of
have
it,
room in my life for Squidmar.
so like, part of this was just like me not really considering all of this and being like, no, I can do this. This is fine. This is fine.
Interesting.
And also, I didn't know Dana Howell yet, so I was like, I'm the only girl. Like, there's gonna be a market for me. And my day job is marketing, so I'm like, psh, I'm gonna be able to market this. Like, you think that the cats are there on accident? Because they're not. That's some staging right there.
Right, of course. Yeah.
And so I was like, no, I totally got this. This will be fine. And then I've like slowly realized of like, oh my God, there's like hundreds of other small YouTubers that if I had known about all of these, I might have felt like this was an impossible task. But since I just didn't know, I just started doing it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You know, and yeah, it was, I guess Dana went under a different name for a while, and I've never seen, like, that channel is scrubbed, and I'm like, oh, I would have loved to see what she was doing before she got into like the Dana Howell, because I really like her aesthetic, and like, even though I don't tutorial video anymore, like I'll watch a little bit of it just to see, like, keep up with the Joneses, make sure I'm like understanding, I'm doing my homework here. But like, I don't need to watch a 40-minute tutorial anymore, like, unless if I'm sitting down with like Alfonso Heraldez, you know, like, and actually like teach me how to do this, like, that's what I like. The one-on-one thing is where I'm at this point in my career. So
Hmm.
so how did you find the community to react to you at that point? Like, what was your initial, like, sort of like metrics and vibe?
So let me think. I think that I remember the day that I got like 10 subscribers on YouTube, and I was so excited because I had 7 videos and I had more subscribers than videos. And that was like such a
Whoa.
breakthrough for me.
Yeah.
Um, but I remember one of my first comments was like, I hate the cats, lose them. And I'm like, oh, you just wait. I'm going to make myself with these cats.
That's just like, not like, hey, welcome to the neighborhood, I hope you have a good time here. I hate the cats, lose them.
Yeah. I mean, granted,
Brutal.
at the time I was using I was recording on my iPhone and like didn't have a microphone for my voiceovers, and like most of my early videos are hidden because they're just like so bad. So I don't blame anyone for like not really being interested. My
Sure.
like I couldn't, since I was recording with my phone, the white balance was constantly changing. So it'd be like in this shot it was definitely accurate to the miniature, and in this shot it's really really blue, and I'm sorry that you can't tell what I'm blending. So like I had a terrible start, but I'm like, no, I'm gonna do this, so I'm gonna power through having this really terrible equipment. um, but eventually I got to like people who actually like looked forward to my videos every week, and they like I would talk about a video I was going to do the next week, and someone would comment that they were really excited for it, and that's when I was like, okay, like people actually care that I'm doing this.
Nice, nice. Now, how long did it take for that sort of thing to happen?
uh mm, like 2 months or something like that.
Okay.
So
I
there were a
just,
lot of videos where like people did not care.
sure. And I think that like, I want people to understand, when you get into doing things like this, you can go a really long time before any traction or anybody gives you any sort of like positive reinforcement. You know, like, they can be it can be a brutal 2 months. Like just that, like like I said, the vacuum, the void that eats your content and doesn't give you anything back is like very difficult.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting being a YouTuber because whether I was getting like 15 views on a video and maybe I didn't think that was enough, and now I get like 1,000 views on a video and I am depressed about that, like I still somehow manage to be upset about this. Like
Sure.
that is just an internal flaw of mine that I think everyone experiences that to some degree. There is some amount of really amazing excitement that you got to this level, and then somehow you still find ways to be depressed about whatever it is that you're working on.
Well, I mean, to totally date stamp this video, we just got the announcement that Miniac is like not doing Friday videos anymore. Like he'll still be releasing like probably a video a week, maybe every other week. You know, like that was to me like I was wondering if that was going to be happening soon, because you could tell that he was not having near as much fun in his videos as he probably should. And that happens as you start getting older and you start to like understand that like you just rat raced yourself. Like you put yourself in your own prison. And that's a really interesting thing that YouTube is, while you are fighting an algorithm and you are fighting for like visibility, like you are your own master, which means you are your own punisher at the exact same time. And it is
Hmm.
really weird. It is a very weird relationship that you start having at that point.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, so my videos that right now, like for the big guys, they've been like really large, and that's totally like makes sense. But nobody ever finishes one of my videos. They always go and listen to the podcast version, which is what I expect. But what I found is like the smaller videos, like they only get like 200-300 people watching them, which is like seems small, but those people watch the entire video. Like they are like way like more people. Those smaller videos outperform time wise than the bigger ones by ratio. It is one of the
Interesting.
weirdest metrics I've ever seen, and I'm like, I can't tell you why this is, but it like I've for the streamers, they've been like people have like found me from your videos and they are now watching me on Twitch, and that's really cool. And so like I'm excited to have something like that for YouTubers, because I've been kind of like big YouTubers, Twitch streamers, big YouTubers, Twitch streamers. I feel like I need to like get back over to like regular YouTubers, streamers, and like I need to spread the love around a little bit here.
Well, I feel like I've made it because you wanted to interview me. So I've like, I don't know who you're talking about being a big YouTuber, but it's obviously me
It
because you're
is
talking
you.
to me.
100% you. Yeah. So what do you think your goals for YouTube are? Like that is the other thing that I'm starting to realize, that like people are getting into it and they are like, the goal for YouTube is just like, oh, I'm going to do this thing and I'm going to have some fun. I'm like, no, like this is a commitment. What are you doing with this? And I think you probably have thought about this one.
Yes, so the dream would be to be a full-time miniature painter, whether that be a combination of commissions or private lessons and Patreon and YouTube and all of that stuff. That would be the dream, is to get to do art all the time.
Hmm. And
So we'll see.
what is the path kind of look like right now? Because like you have all of these like things set up, like you are doing the groundwork for that. Like where are you at in that sort of career?
Um, I have a few steady commission clients. I do a lot of Kingdom Death, which is really interesting because I've never played Kingdom Death. Um, I happened to get my main client sort of by accident. It was one of those times where somebody said, "Hey, I'm going to recommend you to my uncle, and my uncle is totally going to hire you." And you know how that goes. You're like, "Yeah, okay, whatever." The
Yeah,
uncle came
sure.
through. He is my number one client. So I have a few Kingdom Death collectors who I am painting a bunch for.
Nice.
But otherwise, I think that I would like to focus on Patreon because I like getting to have that dialogue. I like getting to get to know people, and I feel like I like getting to make money from YouTube. I think it's great.
Sure.
Um, but I I wish that the ads weren't so goddamn annoying. Like I hate like I know I have the choice to turn this off, but the mid-roll ads come every like 6 minutes. Could we stretch this out a little bit because
Oh,
people
really?
yes. And people comment saying, "I clicked away from your video for mid-roll ads." And I'm like, "Yeah, totally, dude. I get that." Unfortunately, I make like barely anything as it is. So if I cut that out, there's going to be a huge drop to the very little income that I already have. But I like getting to make money from YouTube because I really love all the comments that people give me saying how much I helped them and that they learned this and then this was a light bulb moment for them. And I love getting to make money off of doing that. But then I also feel sort of like soul sucked that I have to let these stupid ads for toothpaste or whatever the heck is going on in order to make money from teaching these people.
Sure, sure. I mean, they could always just pay for YouTube Premium, which is what I do because I'm at the point now where I don't like ad blockers and all that stuff that sometimes like break other websites. I'm just like, you know what? I watch so much YouTube. Like it's on 24/7 in our
Hmm.
household. My wife watches it. Uh my employees watch it all the time. So like my business just like pays for it. We're just like we're all in it. We're all using it to learn. So like yeah, like this is a worthwhile investment. And I just wish more people, because like a regular YouTube subscription is very cheap. Like a family one is $15 a month. Like
Hmm.
it's like $5 for a single person. It's one of the most worth it subscriptions ever. And because I think at that point they don't see the ads, but you still get the ad revenue from it, if
Oh,
I
well,
understand.
I like that idea.
Yeah, I mean, like, just push everybody to get YouTube Premium. It just doesn't make any sense to not anymore.
Actually, before this podcast, I was having a mid quarantine breakdown of listening to all of these people that you've talked to and feeling like, am I good enough to be on this podcast? Like, I don't know if have I accomplished enough and earned enough. And my husband and I sat down and he was saying, Lila, what is enough? Like, do you have this figured out? Because if you don't know what enough looks like, it will never be enough.
Yeah,
And I have decided that there are a few steps I need to take. I'm going to be looking for competitions that I can do during quarantine, unfortunately. And then, like, are there magazines that I can submit my work to? And like
sure.
trying to write down achievable goals so that I can know, am I being successful or not?
Is a really like it's a really self-aware thing to do, and I'm glad that your husband is able to like talk to you in those ways. Sometimes like sometimes we suck at those things. Sometimes wives can suck at that stuff too. An artistic relationship has a lot of really weird boundaries that get bent, and if you are a more creative person and your partner is more a logical left brain side of the person, it is really hard to not like vomit the soul and be completely like scatterbrained around them, and you just drive them crazy, which is like kind of what I do to my wife, and she has to sit down and talk with me like, what is the goal? What is like, if you're doing this just to do this as a thing, you're driving yourself crazy right now. It's just not worth it. And I'm like, you are totally right. I need to have a goal here. And if I don't have a goal, then it just doesn't make any sense to stress, because like can have a lot more fun just painting minis and not, you know, editing videos and all of that stuff.
Yeah, there's
Uh
so much work that goes into posting YouTube videos. Like painting is one thing, and then painting on camera is a different thing, and then all of the editing and the audio equipment and everything else that has to go into that is like this third huge thing. And it's a lot of work, but I'm a workaholic. Like my husband has to remind me to spend time with him and not only work,
Sure,
because
sure.
I am constantly working.
Yeah. It's kind of the way I am too. I like, and then I'll turn the hobby into work, and like so, like that was kind of my first thing. When I started painting, I like within like months of me like being like, oh, I'm kind of all right at this. Like I got my first big commission client, and then for the next 6 months was painting Rising Sun from like. I'd go work all day and then I'd come home and then I'd paint for 6 hours a night. And then
Yes,
I'd
exactly.
just do that over and over and over again. It was not healthy.
And then also my hobby is my de-stress. My hobby is my de-stress and my job. And so it would be, Lexi, you're working. And like, well, technically I'm not working. Technically I'm relaxing. It just looks the exact same to you.
Yeah, yeah. This is my meditation time and you are messing it up right now.
Exactly, exactly. And my office is a closet under the stairs, so there's no, I can touch both walls, like this is my office.
Oh,
So
that's
there's no
awesome.
space for him. It's not like we can work together. I would love to have an office and a desk big enough so that we could both sit next to each other and we could at least talk while I paint, but I do not have that luxury. Currently my luxury is my ability to close the door to my office so that the cats don't eat my commissions.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like the cats like are like the enemy of like Kingdom Death models because they just want to gnaw on them the entire time.
Yes. So the hard set the whole reason we moved. I mean, I wanted a nicer apartment. But one of the big things when we moved apartments was that I need to have an office with a door because Mochi took the Flower Witch commission that I was working on at that time, took it off my desk and ran with it, and then started chewing on it.
Oh
And
no.
uh the luckily I was able to he chewed on one of the like skirt bits that's all leaves, so I was able to sculpt it all back together, and like there you can't tell at all, but just like the absolute panic attack of this Kingdom Death miniature, possibly, one of a kind or whatever, um, got attacked by my cat, and I absolutely cannot do this anymore. So had to get a office with a door.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I think that is a good learning lesson that everything can be fixed. There's no way to actually ruin a model if you are patient enough. You would have to do something really horrible. And like the other day on Twitch, I kept like people were like, "What are you doing to this model?" And I'm like, "I'm like painting in like." Do you remember that Squidmar video where he was showing how to paint like wing textures and like just like went over and was painting ink in there and then glazing over it over and over and over. It was like this
Yeah.
huge. So I was doing that the other day on Twitch, and so this guy right here that I've been working on, which I was going to talk about next with like competitions. I was doing that, and it looks awful. It is one of the most horrible things that you can ever see while working on a model, and while doing it live, people are just like, "This is you're ruining it." And I'm like, you literally cannot ruin this. Like I stopped thinking of this of in like in that zone because like it's all plastic, it's all resin, it's all pewter. It doesn't matter if something gets messed up. You can take a step back. You know what it looks like. You have all the tools. You have all the green stuff. You have all the files. You have all this stuff. You can fix it. You can
Hmm.
absolutely fix it. And it's very weird that people who do the hobby are so afraid to like actually try to like fix their problems. I mean, like, no, nothing's broken, nothing's horrible.
So, one of the first series that I did on YouTube was painting like the masters, and I was painting miniatures in the style of art history painters. Like, Caravaggio is my favorite painter. He's from the Baroque era, and so I did this video on like, what does the Baroque era mean, and how could you paint a miniature being inspired by the Baroque era? And mostly it was, you don't only have to look at miniature painters. Like, there's this whole world of inspiration out there, but I was attempting to do surrealist, and I decided I was going off of the melted clock, Dolly's melted clocks,
Yeah.
and I put a plastic miniature in the microwave to see if it would appropriately melt, and I can tell you it doesn't.
No. No, it doesn't. Okay, so
And
that might be ruined.
yeah, no, it did not do anything I wanted it to do. Only her legs started to bubble, but only her legs. And then she just like her knees started bubbling and just slowly shrank. I was like, okay, not this.
So in that series, didn't you do the Starry Night Van Gogh, and people were like, you're using too much thick paint on it, and you're like, I'm doing it like how they would have done it. Like you don't understand. Like, these paintings had fucking impasto all over them, and like people were like telling you that you were doing your hobby wrong when you were doing exactly what you set out to do. I
Yeah.
was like watching the comments on that. I was like, what the fuck are these guys talking about? Like, do you not understand what the point is here? Like, this is insane.
Yeah, the reason I wanted to do that video is because so many people looked at the videos that I was posting and they're like, I cannot paint like that. Like there's no way I can paint that much detail. My paint's always textured and like there's no way I can paint like Michelangelo. And I'm like, well, luckily for you, you don't have to because you could paint like Van Gogh. And so I purposely did this like thickly applied paint and like not like the colors were like wrong and jarring, and like I went out of my way to like nail home of like you don't have to be good at this to be good at this. If this is what you set out to do and this is what you accomplish, then you are good at what you wanted to do. And
Right.
yeah, people were telling me they're like, yeah, no, that's not good. I'm like, did you watch the intro or did you like look at the thumbnail and then just decide to like mute the audio and then come like yell at me about this not being good enough? Because I feel like if you had watched the intro, you would have known what was going on.
I mean, do you get a lot of comments like that? Is that something that happens in your videos a lot, where people just kind of like mansplain to you that you're doing it wrong the whole time?
No, I
Good.
do not.
Thank God. Okay, good. Because like that whole cycle, I was just like, because that was earlier on into the idea of me starting the interview things, when I was watching your vids, and I was like, I would not want to be a woman doing content creation. The amount of
Mhm.
shit that they have to deal with is insane. Absolutely insane.
I was really worried about that when I started YouTube, and I have gotten in a little over a year of doing YouTube, I have gotten one comment that was on the brink of not really being appropriate, and that's it.
Okay.
I've had people sexualize my miniatures.
Yeah, I think that that's pretty common though.
Yeah,
Like,
but
not you. That's good. I'm glad to hear that.
yeah, like there's a video where I do a close up of the flower witch and she's like very obviously
Blam!
well endowed, and someone's like, pause the video here. Ha 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 ha. I go to that timestamp and it's like this. I'm like, yeah, well, all right. And so but
Nailed it,
otherwise,
kid.
yeah.
Nailed it.
But I personally have never gotten anything questionable. I've had worse stuff happen in the photography world than I ever have in the mini painting world, which I was really not expecting. I thought that being a female photographer was bad, that being a female mini painter was going to be bad, and it has not been like that at all.
Well, and you don't ever, I mean, like, you may be very honest in the fact that you know, knowing that you're a woman, you're going to use these like those aspects to help grow your career. You've never pushed the I'm a sexy mini painter, come look at me. You're like, you don't, like, your thumbnails are not all about you, they're about what you're working on. And I think that that is the thing that, like, when I see that, and it, not to say that it's, people are going to do whatever the fuck they want. Like, I am here to support anybody expressing themselves the way that it is, but it's really nice to not have that lizard brain part of myself being triggered every time I'm going into like one of your videos. And like, and I really respect that, because you know, some people do make that like conscious decision to be like, I'm going to push this boundary. And then what comes along with that, while it might be like a more meteoric rise, like it just comes with a bunch of shit, and burnout is like not far behind. And like, you have to ask yourself, then what's the limit? How far are you going to go? And your audience is always going to push you, like always going to push you. So it's nice that you don't have that same sort of toxic relationship with your audience.
Mm-hmm. No, I have a very supportive audience. It's interesting looking at my metrics of like 97% guys, just because I'm like, huh, as a woman, I am intrigued that the audience is like, I guess part of you knows, but also being a woman, I surround myself by other female miniature painters, so I see a higher proportion of female miniature painters, and then I look at my audience and it's like, wow, really unbelievably skewed.
Yeah, sure. Well, and like you have a couple thousand followers on Instagram, which
Hmm.
is awesome, because like I don't know why I didn't like follow you on Instagram until earlier today. That seemed really weird. I was like, wait a second, I should have been following you. Uh but like Instagram is this weird hub, and I think because mainly women use Instagram, like, you know, if you're going to be following the metrics, there are so many amazing female miniature painters on there that I'm like, this is so cool. And because like Facebook, it's the exact opposite. It's like all dudes, and like the tone of everything is different. And while there is like a supportive like group of people on Facebook, like the Instagram community is totally different. And I'm just now paying attention to it, and I feel bad that I missed it, because there's some really magical things happening there.
I have had positive experiences on all of my social media. Even Reddit has been really wonderful to me,
Wow.
which is supposedly like the scum of the internet, but
Yeah,
like everyone's
go
been
buy
so
a
nice to me on Reddit.
go buy a lottery ticket right now, because you like that's like I've had all right Reddit things, but I've had definite downright like, oh, I'm just gonna erase my post and disappear for a while.
I posted one picture of a miniature that had been featured in one of my YouTube videos, and some guy commented saying of like, at first I thought that someone was stealing this photo from Lyla and I was gonna break their kneecaps, and then I saw that it was you. Hi.
That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. So I want to circle back around. You said doing competitions is something that you want to do. Have you never done any mini painting competitions?
Um, nope, I have not. I mean, I've done stuff in my local game store,
Mhm.
but that's been it. I would love to do miniature competitions. You know, the dream was to do Crystal Brush, and we know how that has gone.
Yeah, that's terrible.
So I would love to do miniature painting competitions. I'm so hard on myself that nothing's ever good enough to enter, so I haven't done it yet.
Sure. I think you could absolutely enter like these like I think that it's a good like learning experience to be part of it. Like I I I did it as like coming from a music background. The one thing I hate more than anything is battle of the bands. It makes me want to jump off a bridge. Like anytime I see like a bunch of different genres, like going for this like gift certificate to Guitar Center, and like, you know, 10 hours in this studio or something, it makes me want to die on the inside, because like you have people who believe so hard that this is going to be something that's going to change their lives. And the fact of the matter is, it's just like a thing to acknowledge you. But like most people, by the time that you've gone through that, you're either so beat up that you just don't want to do it anymore. I've seen Battle of the Bands ruin more bands than I've seen actually help them.
Okay.
You know, I mean, like even in American Idol, look at Ruben Studdard. That dude had no career after American Idol. You know, like Clay Aiken, who lost, you know, has had a really good acting career, even though he probably will be singing in the Branson circuit someday. You know, like those things are not the big like meteoric rise that you hope. And so I was afraid mini painting would be the same way. Like you go here, you get a thing, you get a big ego, and then like you would never do it again. And that's not the vibe that I got. So like, I did just like, since you're kind of close to St. Louis, you should, if you don't go and do like Adepticon next year, if it happens, you should really consider like doing something like Warfare Weekend, where the painting competition, like Chris Surrey's there, he's going to kick all of our asses, and that's just the way it is. But you're going to meet Chris Surrey, see the pieces in person, and learn from them, and that is the shit that's magic. It doesn't matter whether you win because you get to meet the people. You get to meet Lynn Stahl, you get to meet Lauren Fahey, all these people that like are pushing our hobby. That's something that like I didn't know how important that was going to be. It's absolutely huge. It's huge that you could do that. So I highly recommend that.
I just ordered a miniature from Creature Caster in hopes of them doing their competition at Adepticon in the spring. COVID willing. So
Yes.
I just bought that, and I'm very excited for that. So that's going to be my first, at least on the horizon, first like competition. Because since I don't do Warhammer miniatures, there really just aren't sculpts that interest me.
Sure.
That really puts out a lot of mini painting contests. So I have to find ones that I actually want to do.
Sure. What'd you end up getting?
I got the Empress of Pleasure or something like that. God, I really hope that's what it's called, and I didn't.
Was it?
But she's got a big. I got one of the little ones.
Oh, the tiny ones.
The tiny ones.
Not the big ones.
No, not the big ones. I've never painted any. I think the video that I just released was the biggest one. He was 6 inches, and that was a nightmare. Hold on, I can tell you what one I got. Creature Caster. I got Matriarch of Ecstasy. I was okay. I was real close.
So I think what is it? Rising Heroes. I think they are the pleasure faction. It's all based off of the Slaneshi stuff, which is all Warhammer. But like I like all those sculpts a lot because I think that a lot of skin is very fun, even if it's just demon skin. I would rather like a slender model to paint than like the brutish demon to paint, just because like you can kind of phone a brutish demon in, and it's always like they're sculpted big muscles. Like you can just like, you could probably dry brush it and look just fine. Like there's something about like having to like take your thoughts and actually like work on these things and practice these techniques that Creature Caster really does well. And if you get your model by October 16th, they are doing Resin Beast 2020 online, which it's not as good as what it was at Adepticon, which came with a $3,000 payout if you win, like the big prize. But you could win like a dragon coming up because they're releasing dragon soon, which I'm pretty thrilled about. That to me seems like a really cool small online competition that I think will be ran pretty well.
I might do that. My filming schedule is so busy. I don't know. I don't know if I'll have time to do anything I'm happy with.
I totally get it. That's a very real thing. The cool thing is, even works in progress, every week they're doing a drawing. So like you could win like a $25 gift card in between there. So like it might be worth just starting and playing around with and taking little Instagram shots and tagging it. I'm trying to get more people comfortable with the idea of like taking part of that, like, because even though there are going to be some really amazing painters doing some crazy things, like the vast majority of us are like regular humans still learning. And so like it's important that you get in there, you learn your lessons, because nobody's going to make you feel bad for how you did, and you might be able to learn some cool things along the way.
Yeah, I like Creature Caster's miniatures a lot because I love the duality between beauty and fear. They're not just huge buxom models. They've got like weird claws or like weird like antlers or like alien-esque anatomy, and I'm not a huge I dislike painting models that have wasp waist and big boobs to
Mhm.
have wasp waist and big boobs.
Right, right. Which unfortunately is a lot of models. Like, th- th- it's and it's a weird thing because like so many of them are like sculpted by guys, and like you're just like doing this like weird male fantasy of things, and like yeah, women are being represented in here, but like, are they? Are they?
Yeah. Yeah, for I wanted to do crystal brush this past year. I mean, the
Yeah,
usual. Um, but I wanted to do something in the like around the 52 millimeter mark,
sure.
and I could find one female miniature that was not scantily clad at that scale. It was
Really?
unbelievably heartbreaking to not be able to find anything that wasn't bikini plate mail.
What was the model that you found?
It was by, oh my gosh, I can, I can't, I can envision it, but I can't tell you the name of it. I will get back to you.
Okay.
I'm
Because
sorry.
no, that's fine. Judgment is a collectible miniatures game that has some really amazing like female sculpts, and not all of them are in the himbo bimbo sort of over sexualized models. There's a couple of them that are a little borderline, but
Hmm.
like for the most part, like they have some of the most incredible sculpts. Even like their like minotaur species are great. Their orc species are crazy, and they're like really visceral feeling. And like, so they have like an orc that woman that's like in like a bikini, but it isn't like because the anatomy is very different, and the pose and the way it's coming, it's more like I'm just going to tear you apart right now. That like the
She's
feel
got the
of it.
axe over her head, right? And she's like
Yeah,
running.
yeah.
I know the one you're talking
Yeah,
about.
that one like I'm excited to paint that one, and unfortunately I keep on like doing things like resin beasts that take up all the time, which
Hmm.
like that's a huge problem. Is like, how do you paint the things that you want, and like also paint the things that can get you clicks or get you money or whatever it is. How do you find that balance?
Yeah, I accept very few commissions unless I really want to paint it, except for
Hmm.
like my like core collectors. Just because in order for me to have the energy to want to paint this, I have to really want to paint it. Even if
Yeah.
you're going to pay me, I still have to really want to paint it. Otherwise, I don't have time.
Yeah, you should hear Eenie Meenie talk about like her commissions. Like, like she straight up like prices things crazy, and is like instantly like, if I don't like it, I'm not gonna do it. I don't care how much you throw at me, I'm not gonna do it. And I'm like, yep, yep. No, I feel that one. Um, so one of the things that you and I have talked about a lot, and this is probably the thing that you have taken the most heat from, is miniatures as fine art and miniatures as hobby. And you did a video that you had to take off YouTube. Can you like, I don't know the story. I haven't seen said video. Tell me what it was like throwing a
Oh
grenade into
no.
the YouTube space. I want to hear the story.
Okay, so Miniac did this podcast, or it was an episode on his podcast, um, and he was talking about, is miniature painting art? Why
Yeah.
don't we see miniature painting in galleries or museums? And it was, I can answer this. This is actually something that I can answer and participate in this conversation. I am like a pro at this. And so I decided that I was going to make a video answering this question because I had the answer. Um, and so I like wrote a paper, like had like artists and like cited sources and like all of this stuff, had like this big thing laid out. And the biggest problem with my video was that people did not either understand or accept the difference between art and fine art,
Right.
because miniature painting can absolutely be art. I'm not going to say it's not. I like to think it's art. It's like absolutely amazing and gorgeous, but that doesn't make it fine art. And it's a really big distinction. For example, if you look at like if you go to the museum and you see a painting that's a single paint stroke down a canvas, that's fine art. Why is it fine art? I could have done that. Yeah, well, you didn't, and it
You
has
didn't.
this
Yeah.
whole context around it that makes it fine art. So just because so there's this disconnect between when something is fine art and when something is just art, and my viewers did not understand or accept that. And so when I was explaining why miniature painting is not fine art, people were going after me about like it's artists like you who make me want to put the paintbrush down, and or it's people like you that make the art world seem so unacceptable and unwelcoming, and I don't know why you decided to share this toxic viewpoint on the internet. And I just got like ripped apart for talking about why your Warhammer Nurgle army would never be in the Met.
Right, right. Well, like the difference between and like the term fine art and is a really hard one too, because I don't think anybody, unless if you're in the art world, understands that. So like I've used the term conceptual art, and even that people don't get. Like you don't understand like sure you could have like Dadaism, which is about like the complete irreverency of like items, and like that shit could theoretically, if Warhammer was a thing in like 1909, like you could have put that in a thing and maybe made it work. But the fact of the matter is, this is a mass produced thing that has a paint by numbers sort of mentality to it that you play games with. And like, it's not that you can't do it, it's just that nobody is doing the conceptual thing. And that is one of the hardest things to explain. Real art with a capital A, versus like the craft, which like I like to think of myself as a high-end crafter, because it would break my heart to be looked at as a shitty artist. Like I would not want to be called a shitty artist.
Yeah. So I think that the way that miniature painting could be fine art would be if you sculpted it yourself,
Right.
because miniatures come with a story already told. You did not create this. It is somebody else's art. The sculptor already made this. You can't pluck it enough from its context to make it art on its own. If you sculpted it and you yourself came up with the story and the like he's looking down because he's looking towards hell or whatever, and like he's using his left hand because the left hand in mythology is closer to the heart, and that's what, like, if you sculpt this and you come up with all of this, then you can make it fine art. But if you are just taking like mass produced miniature, you can't have thought about all of the conceptual things that need to go into this in order for it to count as fine art.
Right. That is a really hard one. When I see people like Chris Surrey doing their pieces, and if you ever saw one of his things, because he doesn't ever take a model and just like, I got this guy and I put it here. He chops them up, he saws them, he does like they are not the same. But after he gets his hand on his stuff, uh after seeing some of his, I was like, oh, this is the argument for miniatures actually could transcend. And that's the thing, it has to be like a transcendent sort of idea to get you there. And yeah, I don't ever think just a standard space marine will ever get to that point where like the boy in blue made it to the fine art gallery, like unless if it's in a retrospect of miniature like hobby or something. I don't know, like it seems like everybody wants the effort to be there, but to get you to art. But like, how many watercolor artists do you know that paint the exact same shit that every other watercolor artist does? And like, they want to be looked at as an artist, but you're like, but what did you do here? Like what did you
Hmm.
do that literally everybody else in the room didn't do? Like, what is your concept, where are you going with it? And I think that's the part that people don't understand about art, like, at
Yeah.
all.
And I think that there is nothing wrong with a piece not being art or not being fine art. Like that
Sure.
should in no way change your enjoyment of painting it. Hopefully, I mean, I assume you're not painting this to go in a gallery or go in a museum, so why is it the fact that it would never be in a gallery or a museum impact you? Like, Miniac posed this question. I thought it was really interesting, and I'm sure other people also have this question. And I happen to have the qualifications and the knowledge to be able to answer this question. And people just did not want to hear it. And perhaps I probably should have seen this coming. Like, I don't know why I thought that this would be a good idea, but I thought that I would be able to start an interesting dialogue. I thought that people would be able to like look at this and weigh the pros and cons, and perhaps, you know what, perhaps have had a bad experience on the internet. I just had to delete it and forget about it, that
Forget
people
about
were that negative and were not like, I thought that this would be an interesting conversation, and no one wanted to have that conversation.
Yeah, I think you just said one of the most important things that of anybody who is like, is this art that, you know, like, are you painting it to be in a museum? Because if you are, then you need to like step up your game. You need to actually bring it. You need to do this. If you aren't, then what does it matter? Like,
Yeah.
it's one of those things that like, you know, I don't understand why people take so much offense to these things. Like, I am totally fine knowing that what I am doing is artistic, it is crafty, it is creative, it is fun, it is keeping my right side of my brain very flexible. So hopefully Alzheimer's and dementia doesn't take me down in my old age. Like, I am thrilled of all the benefits that it gets. I don't, even though I have ideas for bringing the concept to the point where maybe it could be viewed as art, I don't have the time, the drive, the things that take to the sacrifice that it takes to actually make art. I don't have that right now, especially right now. I don't have it.
Hmm. And then the idea of how are you going to get these miniatures? Like, let's say that you have come up with some concept that you think could be fine art, and then you have if you're going to sculpt these digitally and you're going to print them, that's a whole other can of worms. If you're going to do 3D printing, that's a whole nother thing that is going to be debated about whether or not this can be considered fine art. Like, I am not the authority. I am just telling you what I know from grad school. Like, the fact that I do digital photography, people debate about whether or not I'm actually a fine art artist because I'm doing it digitally. And so
Right.
now you want to possibly do 3D printing and you want to bring that in and talk about that being fine art. Like, there's just this whole other can of worms that could come from this, and there's just so many layers, and honestly they are a bit roadblocks. I feel like, I mean, like, to some extent artists are snobs, and I feel like you kind of
Oh
have
yeah.
to be. It's like, yeah, okay, maybe I am a snobby bitch, but I'm also just telling you how it is. Like, I'm not telling you it's right or wrong, but like, this is how it is, and if you want an answer to this question, this is it. And maybe you don't like it, but this is the answer.
Well, the funny thing too is I think everybody, when you say it's not art, everybody hears that as a hard no. And that is not what it is not art means. Like, it means that right now it is not. Like, I can look at my entire table of stuff and say none of this is actually art, and that's totally fine. But that doesn't mean that you can't find the way to be there. I don't understand everybody's knee-jerk reaction to like, oh well, you said something negative, so that's just like the 100% end of it. Like, no, to get, like, you can't get a PhD in art anymore because they feel like all things have been discovered artistic, which seems really weird because as technology changes, like, it seems like you should be able to still get a PhD in art, um especially as like internet has changed what we view as art and how things are, how we interact with them. It feels like they should reopen that back up because right now you can't get a doctorate in art, and I feel like there is whole new arguments in this new information age for what is art and how we perceive it. uh just because it isn't right now doesn't mean it can't be. And just
Yeah.
because it, you know, like, that's the funny thing. Like, to me it's a challenge. To me it's like, it's exciting when someone says it isn't. I go, how can we make this an is? Like, that's the thrilling thing. And talking to people like you is important.
Yes,
Because
please. Prove me wrong. If you think that you have gotten the miniature, you have sculpted it or whatever, and you think it's fine art, please prove me I'm wrong. I would love to be wrong. From what I have seen and from what I do, I have not yet seen a fine art miniature, but that doesn't mean that there isn't or can't be or never will be. It's just
right.
that right now I have the answer, and right now the answer is no.
No, yeah. Did you pay attention to the AK Interactive kerfuffle last week?
Can't say that I did.
So,
At least not offhand.
so AK Interactive decided to do this really edgy marketing campaign for their miniature book, where they literally say in the description of the book, we're going to prove that miniatures can be art. Like that is what they were setting out to do. And
Okay.
and so they have a concept. The concept is to show the inhumane atrocities of the world, gas chambers, Holocaust, really, really dark, moody, real world topics that would once made be something that could be put into a museum, as they are shedding a light on things and showing an artistic vision to um, you know uh, resonate around a human atrocity. But then they did it with like the Monster energy drink logo, like the black. Basically, it would be like if the Black Magic Craft logo was just like Holocaust victims, are you ready? Like it was like going to a monster truck thing. And then on the inside of the book of like these actually like I would love to see them out of context. I would love to see them in a more mature view, because like they're tragedies. They're absolute tragedies, and they deserve more respect than what they got in this book that AK Interactive put out, because I would love to actually see if they did it. If they actually took the time to take concept and execute to art. I want to know if that was something that they could have done, but they fucked it up. They like said, "Hey, we got this thing. Let me shit the bed, and this is what I'm going to show you."
Okay, so the next question would be why? Why did
Yeah.
they do that? Why is that? Why did they decide to prove that miniature painting is art in that fashion? Do we really need a miniature diorama? Like, I haven't seen this, so do we need miniature dioramas of the Holocaust? Are you actually adding anything to the conversation other than just trying to be really edgy and, like you said, show the atrocities? Why would you do that?
Yeah. That was instantly, I was like, okay, so like first off, the marketing's horrible, and I'm very frustrated that a company thought that that was okay, because like there are laws of using, like they started off with the commercial for the book was showing a naked woman from what I'm guessing was Cambodia, like from the killing fields, and they were just like throwing her dead body into a mass grave. And I was just like, a miniature paint company, a scale modeling company should not be using, like, you guys don't have the maturity to be like promoting something. And I was like, there's not a product in the world that can like back up that sort of weight and that sort of trigger. And I was totally right. Like an art book is not like the proper product to be selling for that. The worst part is, and since you don't know, we don't have to talk about it a whole lot more, but this is the one that'll like really, this will chap your clams here. They had like, you can build this diorama by buying our AK Interactive products, and like had like SKU numbers of like, this is how you make pipes for your gas chamber, this is how you get the streaking grime to do all it. They literally took all of the things that they could have had any sort of defense that it was art, and they're just like, I'm tearing it up and I'm throwing it away. Like, maybe the whole like scene, you could take like a snapshot back and be like, oh, all of us freaking out over them being horrible tone deaf people. Maybe that could be the art thing of like, we want to see what happens if we throw we yell fire in a crowded theater and like in a safe environment. Here's what we did. But I don't like, they missed the mark so hard on anything that like you can't even show that to someone and be like, this is miniature art. Like
Yeah.
it's embarrassing. It'd be like, this is art, here's a Cannibal Corpse album. Like, like this is fine art. And you're like, I mean, like, while it has artistic merit and could actually be defended at a certain point, like, this is not what you want the first step to be as art, to where the fine art community would look at us and be like, holy shit, you guys are onto something. It was horrible. It was fucking
So
horrible.
one of the projects I did for my graduate school portfolio was so like I said earlier, I have this interest of beauty and fear and this dichotomy of like vampire who could kill you but is unbelievably beautiful, and like why do we want to see these horrors, so like crime shows and like dead girl or girls being murdered every Friday night on whatever TV show was on. And I
Yeah.
was really fascinated by why do we want to see that. So I did this project of it was beautiful women who were murdered. And it was like actually the photos are, if I do say so myself, some of them are quite good, but it was like um this drowned woman in this creek, and like I had her makeup all done and everything like that, and I was so in love with my concept and in love with my photos, and I got to grad school and I showed it to people and they're like, why did you do this? Like, your concept is that you want to explore this idea of why are we drawn to this like horrible, why do we want to see and stare at these dead women
Mm-hmm.
by creating photos of dead women. And I was like, oh crap. Like I can't believe that like this was like my plan, that I wanted to discuss like why do we do this by doing this. And then I was looking at like shoes being advertised on women whose legs are sticking out of a trunk and someone is burying a grave in the Nevada desert. And like and so like was looking at all of these things of like, why do we want to see this? This is so problematic, and I can't try to make art about this to question this by doing it. And so that is always something now that I have to think about, is like, why would you do this? What good does this do? What is your real concept? What are your
Right.
goals? Like, and so hearing this is just so, and then hearing it as somebody attempting to prove that miniature painting is art is just so heartbreaking.
Like, is they scrubbed just about everything of it. You can find like a synopsis of it, and Brent and Casey in the last Paint Bravely talk about it, and that both of them went into great depth. And I'm so glad that we have people like Brent in the hobby who is like gonna stick up for what's right, and also like is very like calculated about how he'll handle these things. Because yeah, like it was it's like, oh, thanks for setting any one of us who's like trying to like understand how to break through the barrier. Thanks for setting us back. Like that was awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, they are monetizing trauma
Yeah.
basically, and then trying to call it art.
Yeah, that's
Hopefully.
exactly what it was. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. I mean, like some of us learn this in grad school, that like if you want to be questioning these things, you shouldn't do these things. And then some people learn it when they launch a huge campaign and the internet screams at them. So,
Yeah.
there's a time for everyone to learn these things. Some of them would preferably have come earlier than others.
I mean, like, wouldn't you like to do it before you've spent thousands and thousands of dollars on an ad campaign that tanks the profitability of your company? Like, it seems like you should ask some people before just being like, you know what we're gonna do? uh, we have gone. We've gone over, and I really appreciate sitting and talking. I do want to swing back around and do a couple more minutes to focus on on where you're at right now and the goals moving forward. Like I said, starting off, it's been so exciting seeing you grow and seeing you come into your own. It's like that's been a really cool thing, and i hope I hope that maybe this conversation here allows you to feel maybe more comfortable about the next time you decide to, poke the fucking hornet's nest, that you can do it in a way that, like, whatever hate comes in is not something that is like as toxic as it was the first time around. Because I think you're really smart, and I think that the way that you talk about miniatures and art, I think that you're going to be a really important person for the hobby, and I'm glad that you're here for that. So what I would like to kind of wrap it up is like short term, long term, like what are your short term goals, and where are they going to be taking you long term?
Those are very good questions that I wish that I had answers to. Um,
Hell yeah, now we're
um,
in it.
oh no. Like I mean, the long-term goal is, like I said, to be able to do this as like my full-time job. Um, uh, and hopefully, and I want it to be my full-time job, not only because I love being able to paint miniatures, but because I would get to be doing teaching, which I obviously also really, really love. Went and got
Yeah.
my I got my master's with the goal to teach photography. I started a YouTube channel to teach people, and so not only would I get to be a full-time miniature painter, but I would also sort of I'd get to be a full-time teacher, just not necessarily teaching photography in front of a college class.
Sure.
And so, short-term goals, the short-term goal that I talked about with my husband was that he asked me when I thought I would make it. Like, what's like a goal of like, I've made it? And I said, be paid by a company to paint like a promo miniature for them, like for their website or for their box. Like that's like when I've made it. Because
Nice.
I've had Kickstarters reach out to me and say, "Hey, you want to paint this for free?" And if I was into it, then maybe I would, but for the most part it's like, that's not my style. I don't like, have you watched my videos? Because that's, thank you very kindly for reaching out to me. That's so thoughtful that you looked at my work and thought that it would be cool if I did this, but that does not fit my genre. So to get paid to paint a promotional piece would be like, I've made it.
That is a really good goal. Do you have any companies that you keep your eye out that you would hope would reach out to you at some point in time?
Uh, there are so many great ones. I've heard some horror stories about companies who want their artists to paint in a very specific way, like you have to paint in this technique, and
Sure.
that wouldn't be something that I would be interested in, but
Yeah.
like Creature Caster would be cool, like I said, because of their duality between beauty and fear, which is something I'm really interested in. I mean, heck, Reaper would be cool. I post on Reaper's Facebook page all the time. I'm Since Reaper was the first miniature brand that I started with, I always go back to Reaper. Whenever I'm looking for anything, Reaper's the first place that I go. So like
Sure.
Reaper would be cool,
Well,
but
and their
like
Bones Black line is great. Like
it
those sculpts are
is.
really good, especially for the money. I'm like,
I've
damn.
been trying to convince my local game store that they need to do Reaper's Blackline because they have completely phased out all of their Reaper miniatures and now only do Whiz Kids. And just like, why? Why are you doing this? Please, please stop.
Some of those Woods Kids ones are all right, but like Reaper is such a cool company that I don't give near enough credit for what they've done for the hobby, and what they've done for just like nerds in general. Like they are everybody's first place and the first step into the hobby, and they don't make it seem hard. You can buy
Yeah.
their little kit that comes with all the paints, and it comes with a really easy to use book that you can like follow it and have a really great, like, I think that Bones is Reaper's a really good company, and I've been cruel to them in the past, but I've turned around on that one, and especially like they love their artists, they love the people who paint their stuff. They are so appreciative of that.
hmm Yeah, Reaper has a really great community. Being a part of their Facebook group is so wonderful. Like people know me and they know when I post things, and they get so excited to see my progress and everything. And so it's really wonderful to have, I mean, to have that community, I guess, which is
Sure.
weird because I'm part of a bunch of different Facebook pages for miniature painting, but like the Reaper miniature people, they're like, Lila, we know you. Like, we're watching you.
Well, and the toxicity's really low there. Like that,
Yeah.
very positive group, which is very cool. Um, do you think that you will ever do any live streaming stuff in as like a second pillar to your YouTube content creation?
Oh, definitely. I just don't know how. I have no clue. I don't know the equipment that I need. Like, I don't know anything, but totally.
Okay, well, we should have a much like more conversation off the cam, because the fact that we're doing this right here means that you can do it. Like if I could do it, you can do it. But that's always like the interesting thing, because like some YouTube people like live streams really hard, like, but you seem to have like the quick wit and like a mind about you that I think you could actually navigate that water like really easily and probably clean up house pretty fast.
Oh, well, thank you kindly. Just please continue showering me with compliments. I will listen.
Well, Lila, this has been a fantastic chat, and I'm glad to have gotten to know you. And thank you for inspiring me along the way. And I know that you have been an inspiration to people in the Brain Trust. And I look forward to seeing where you go in the hobby. I think you're doing fantastic work.
Thank you mighty kindly. Thank you for having me on. Like I said, I have now made it. I mean, like the second step of making it would be to have a company pay me to paint their miniatures, but the first step of making it was being on this podcast. So I really appreciate the honor that has been bestowed upon me.
Hey, we gotta make this hobby more accessible, and we need people to understand there's so many different viewpoints, and that's been the best part of this, is getting to know that I'm helping people like understand these things. It's really exciting.
All right, well, thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for making it through another episode of Hobby Time in the Murder Basement. I really appreciate your support. If you'd like to continue the support in other ways, I do have a Patreon. The link is down below. Proceeds from that will go to pay for new equipment, subscription fees if I need it, and graphic design stuff. I'd like to help build this channel. So any of your support is, while never necessary, is always appreciated. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. If you want to see more hobby stuff, you can head on over to Twitch. I generally stream on Sundays at noon. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.